Divas. Oh, we have a great show in store for you today. We have not one, but two legislative leaders. That's right. We've got both House Speaker Daniel Perez and Senate President Ben Albritton with us this week. We brought our gear into the Capitol and we sat down with them in their offices. So we've got a lot of territory to cover, and I will let you find out what that is when you tune in and listen. Please join us this week, week two of the 2025 legislative session with House Speaker Daniel Perez and Senate President Ben Albritton.
There's fat at every level of government. There's fat in every agency. There's fat in every budget. It's our job to cut it. Make sure that there is no fat. And that's really what we're doing.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
Good morning, Divas. I'm saying morning. I don't know what time it is when you're listening, but I am here fresh, bright and early with the Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives, Daniel Perez. Thank you so much for coming back to Deeper Dive.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
And I know you're short on time, so I will skip the niceties.
Deal.
The first thing I want to ask you about is you're having a special meeting, not a special meeting, but you're doing an investigation into this report that Lawrence Maurer published in the Tampa Bay Times about the insurance companies. Can you tell us a little bit about what you hope to find out and why you're doing this?
Yeah, we have an obligation to make sure that the information that's being sent to us today, but that was also sent to us several years ago, was accurate, was transparent, and that we had all of the necessary information at the time. We have found out, not just through Lawrence, but through other avenues as well, that there is a potential that when the insurance carriers were letting us know that if we didn't have a bill pass or a law that changed the existing laws at the time on homeowners insurance specifically, that they would have to essentially close their doors and move out of the state. And then now we believe there's a potential that those cries were not real, that their profits were higher than expected, and potentially there was some sort of shell game being played. Now, sometimes where there's smoke, there is no fire. And hopefully that's what we find. We want to believe that everyone was an honest broker, but we do have a job to investigate that. And as you said, we start that on Friday.
And that will take place before this comes out. But, in the meantime, the legislature, you devoted funds to reinsurance for these companies, right? How much was that?
It was the RAP program, which, by the way, RAP, R-A-P, it wasn't used by the carriers.
Okay.
So there were parameters that we put into the RAP program where they were mandated to have to lower premiums, basically, if they were to use the funds. But that was, the reinsurance was a problem. And so, we put some money into a pot. But we said, but then you have to lower rates.
Okay.
And they never used it. And that was their right to do so or not. And I want to say maybe one company might have used it. But for the most part, it's untouched.
I see that. Well, thank you for that clarification, because I was wondering about that. And, it's very complicated, this insurance issue and these affiliate companies. Do you think that there's something that you guys need to do to maybe rein those in, the affiliates? They're kind of offshoots of the main companies.
Yeah, some of them have those like subsidiaries.
Yeah.
But I never want to tell a business also what they can and can't do. If they want to have multiple legs to the table, that's okay with me. I just want to make sure that they're transparent and honest with their profits. A private business should want to have more profits, and they should want to have a more successful business. That's not what I'm faulting them for. I'm faulting them potentially, right? Because I could be wrong here. I guess we'll find out soon enough. But I'm faulting them for crying wolf and saying they were going to have to close their doors when potentially their profits were sky high.
Yeah, billions of dollars, I think they were shifting around.
Allegedly, that's what I'm
allegedly,
hearing.
that's right,
well.
Allegedly, and big payoffs to some of the executives as well. While we're on the insurance issue, later today, Representative Lopez has a bill that would prevent citizens, and we're back on the condos. I mean, we've talked about this several times already, haven't we? Back down in the 305, this is a big deal. that would prevent citizens from covering condos that don't comply with the SIRS and milestones inspections. Why is this necessary?
The condo bill, I want to say, I think it's 84 or 85 pages. I mean, this is
90. Yeah, I don't know.
Every day you add a page.
Right.
By the time the bill passes, we'll be at 100 and something.
Yes.
No, it's an issue that a lot of people care about. It's an issue that was important to South Florida because of the Surfside and tragedy that took place. But we have to kind of go back. We passed this bill because we never wanted another tragedy to take place like what happened at the Champlain Towers. That was our goal. And every year we've come back, we have tried to fine tune it in order to make our structures as safe as possible. The problem that we're having now is a lot of condo owners are saying, well, I have to start to pay reserves for structural integrity components, and I don't have the money to do that. What we did in response to those people's concern, those condo owners' concern, is we extended it for 2 years. So it's been 2 years since we passed the initial bill in order for them to start and have the reserve study done and then start to collect the reserves. But still, there are some associations that aren't abiding by the law. And I think where Representative Lopez is coming from is this is more of the stick or the carrot, and the citizens portion is more of the stick. It's more saying like, hey, you have a law to abide by, and you're not doing so. But here's, I think, the conclusion to all of this is the Senate has a completely different version of the bill.
Yes, right? I saw that.
And that's a good thing. I think the fact that we are going to have a debate on it, that we're going to have a compromise on it, we'll see where the bill ends up. Maybe that stays in there, or maybe it doesn't, but we're still so early in the process that it's hard to tell.
We are actually in week 2 now, at the beginning of week 2, as you and I are sitting here in your office. And I'm wondering if you think there will be any surprises coming up early in the session that give our listeners a little scooplet.
I mean, it's session. There's always surprises, but there's also surprises to me too, because you kind of never really know where things are going to go. We haven't taken off yet.
Okay.
We're still in our first couple of dates. You know, we're not going steady yet.
How about the Doge? You know, looking into different spending that the government agencies are doing, colleges and universities. I just saw a recent report that said the Department of Management Services, some of the executives there were spending quite a bit of money on travel. They don't live in the state. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of that came from the findings of University of Florida and Senator Ben Sass. But I think you got to kind of take a step back and look at our higher education system as a whole. Of course, there's fat there, but there's fat at every level of government. There's fat in every agency. There's fat in every budget. It's our job to cut it, make sure that there is no fat. And that's really what we're doing. But when you're talking about higher education, you know, we have the #1 public state university system in the country here in the state of Florida. And we've done so because we have supported these universities financially. But I don't want to be taken advantage of either. And now I'm concerned, you know, we're saying we've been giving the universities all this money. Have they been judicious with the money we've been giving them? I don't know the answer to that. But the governor has raised some concerns about it as well. So have I, and so has President Albritton. But, you know, this is no different than when I said in my speech on the first day of session that, you know, we're the public's watchdog. And we have to make sure that the taxes that we are collecting as a government are being spent to their highest and best use. Money being spent by higher education institutions are no different. We have to make sure that they're also being judicious with the money. So we're going to look into that this session.
What about state agencies? If people are not living in Florida and they're on the state payroll, flying in and out, I mean, state workers now are required to work from the office. They're not allowed to work from home anymore. Should state workers at the highest level, should they be residing in Florida?
They should be residing in Florida. We have enough talent here in Florida to where we can have our employees reside in our own state.
I'm asking, this is kind of a fun question. What's on your personal Doge list? If you had to look at like what I've been asking some of my guests recently, and a lot of them have said, so I'm going to take this one away from you. Subscriptions, like on your phone, you know, subscriptions to Netflix and different things like that. Do you have anything that you think is something that would not survive close scrutiny, bloat, or, you know, spending that you need to rein in?
Tell the divas to tune in. Tell them to tune in. This is going to be an interesting 50 days we have left or whatever's left. We have some good items that are going to be coming out.
Some good items.
We do.
Okay,
divas. You're going to be excited. Tell the divas to hold tight.
You heard it. He's calling you divas, so he's one of our divas. That's great. What about ballot initiatives? Do we need to add more restrictions to what folks who participate in this, the third-party groups, say is already just so onerous that it's prohibitively expensive for just regular folks?
I wouldn't label them as restrictions. I'd label them as oversight. And we want to make sure that the process, of course, is a possibility, but not at the expense of fraudulent petitions being what gets the petitioners across the finish line in order to have something get put on the ballot. We have a bill in the House that's going to move through the process, ran by Representative Persons Mullica. She had her first stop last week. And I know that the Senate, I believe, had their first stop yesterday. But it's something that the president, myself, and the governor all agree it has to be debated and go through the process. And we'll have that here in the next couple of weeks.
The Senate committee added a component yesterday that would prohibit the use of state dollars to advocate for or against a ballot initiative. What's your position on that?
We don't have that in our version. But again, we've only been through one stop. I believe the bill has 2 stops on our end. I'm not sure how many stops are on the Senate. As
of today, it was a committee bill, so it needed to be referred. So I'm not sure. I think it probably will get 2 more vettings.
Yeah, I've never understood how the Senate side works.
Not either.
I just kind of roll with it and figure it out as it goes along. But look, that's one of those items that'll be negotiated when we get to the right point.
You don't have a position on that?
Yeah, I kind of want the membership to have that debate internally. And I really meant it when I said that I didn't want to force the members to vote a certain way. It's why, I mean, if you listen to the speech, we didn't have an HB1 or a 3 or a 5. I didn't want my priorities to dictate the future of the House. I wanted it to be driven by the members, and they'll have the opportunity to debate that portion of the bill as well.
I know this is it's maybe a minor issue in terms of the way state government operates and the expense or whatever, but it's not a minor issue to parents and to local school districts. School start times. You have littles. So what do you think about the school start times? Do we need to repeal that? Did the legislature go too far?
Yeah, I remember when Speaker Renner brought that bill up, it was important to him. And I think his intent was pure. I think it was right. You know, kids need to be able to sleep, and that's part of their brain development, but it's also a part of them being able to get through the next day at school, which, you know, we've all been there. We've all done that. Sometimes it's longer than we anticipate when we're that age. But the members are concerned with it. I think, you know, some of them say their kids are waking up too early to go to school or starting too late and then not being able to get work done. You know, we're going to have that debate within the House, but this is an issue that it depends on what part of the state you're from. You have difference of opinion. Depends how old your children are. I mean, I don't know. I mean, have you heard anything from your viewers where they kind of lean a certain way?
Everybody I've talked to about this thinks that it should be left up to the school districts. And the people I know, parents in my neighborhood, have complained about it because the start times, you know, that they're too early for the small kids. There's no older kids to take care of them when they get home from school. It interrupts their work schedules. I also heard from Senator Bradley, I didn't realize this, but she said that it's costing school districts because they have to have lighting for the sports fields because the games are starting later because of this. So I don't know. Apparently there's a large outcry.
We have to consider that, you know, the locals' opinions. I mean, they're the ones that are the boots on the ground as well. And we're going to do that.
Did you learn anything from the Hemp work group? They had 3 days of hearings. It was quite interesting. I followed that quite closely. Did you get a report or have you?
I was watching it in real time.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was. I was watching it.
What did you learn? What surprised you the most?
I learned that the work groups are working.
They did a lot of work.
We've never done that in the House. It's the first time we've done that. It's an interesting idea that we had. You know, you're bringing 2 subcommittees together with only a select group of members, but there's no bill. And so you're allowing them to just opine. But I noticed from a logistical standpoint as a member myself, I'm noticing that, you know, people are more opinionated when there isn't a bill. It was more of an open forum. It allowed people to speak freely. There was opposition, but there were also proponents. I mean, you saw a little bit of everything. We have 2 bills in the House that deal with hemp, one by Representative Cassell and the other one by Representative Trabolsi. I think both are different, but I'm glad that we did that because we were able to see that the members wanted to have that discussion in a forum outside of it just being a bill. Because you have to remember that when there's a bill, you're only discussing the items in that particular bill. When it's a work group, which is what we have now, on some items, of course, not on every item, you're noticing that they have free reign and the members are able to deliberate in a way that they haven't before in the House. It's been an interesting idea that we've had.
What was interesting, particularly to me on that, was on the last day when they did the questions, like and they compared the questions at the beginning of the first day to the beginning of the last day. And the questions were so different, right? Their knowledge level had really exponentially increased, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, they became smarter. They were learning through the process.
They were learning,
and I think a lot of that goes to Chair Salzman. She did a great job of working the work group, no pun intended, but
yeah.
She was an absolute star.
What do you expect out of the NIL, the name, image, likeness work group? They're starting to meet today.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. I'm a big sports guy.
Okay.
That's my thing. So I am
now.
You are
since
now.
I'm covering the ACC versus FSU and all the other.
By the way, as a Florida State guy, that was a huge win for us.
It was a huge win, wasn't it?
It was great because it gave us flexibility. Right. If every year that goes by, our buyout goes down a little more, and it gives us the opportunity to eventually join, potentially, if the school chooses to do so, a different conference than what we have today. But yeah, I thought that was a huge win for Florida State. I did. But the NIL thing is interesting. You know, I want to protect the kids, but I want them to have every opportunity to go and capitalize on their NIL.
Okay. Well, Speaker Daniel Perez, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll be doing these check-ins with you periodically, I hope, throughout session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back for part 2 of our Legislative Leaders Week 2 update. Okay, divas, you know what time it is. It's the news in haikus. The news in haikus. I hope you're paying attention this week. Engaging young minds. Focus blooms where thoughts once strayed. Phones are out of sight. That was the news in haikus for you in week 2. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts, that's podcasts with an S, at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back with Senate President Ben Albritton. Oh, divas, lucky for you, second week of session, I am sitting here in the Senate President's suite, and we are recording with Senate President Ben Albritton. Thank you very much for coming back to the show to give us an update about the session.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to spend time with you. And to all the divas out there, hello. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, things are moving pretty fast right now. Seems like it's moving faster than normal, and maybe it's because I'm in this office.
Does it really?
It really does. Feels like
it feels to me like it's not.
I think it may just be because being president, you know, things are flying around you all the time. But anyhow, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I love that we're doing this, and I hope that we can do it again sort of at the midway point. We had a little sit down with the House Speaker, so I love that the leaders are participating. And you both gave shout outs to the listeners and called them divas, so that makes me really happy too. So.
Well, that's what you call them.
I
and,
do.
You know, they're friends, so I'm going to be friendly. And
They
I'm
are
going to call them divas. So that's
they are
awesome.
listening too if you walk around. Let's dig right into what's going on. I just want to give you a chance to talk about, you guys just passed an autism bill that was sponsored by Senator Harrell. And we just got done with the gaggle down there. We're recording this on Wednesday. It'll come out on Sunday. If you wanted to give a little recap of why that's an important bill and we moved that so early in the session.
Thanks for asking. So that's the first bill that's moved all the way through the process and passed off the Senate floor. You know, autism is incredibly prevalent in children today. And the numbers are very scary. If you go back and think about where we were maybe 20 years ago versus where we are today, it's increased by maybe fivefold. I've heard different numbers thrown around, 1 in 36, 1 in 24. Back then it was 1 in 250. So that's very scary. Mm-hmm. Now, recognizing that, there is a little bit of a journey that I've been on with this. So I would guess that every one of your listeners in today's world with the prevalence knows a family that has a child that has autism.
0 degrees of separation at this point.
Yes, ma'am. I think it is widely understood that this is a very growing and very scary challenge. So last year on the Senate floor,
the Speaker's family.
Yes. Yes. So I'll do my best to get through this without getting emotional.
You can't. So we love you for that.
Thank you for that. I promise I'll do my best. Last year when we were on the floor, I noticed a couple of boys up in the gallery that had their handbook out of senators, and they were pointing, down. They'd look in the book and they'd get so excited and they'd point down like they knew that they see the senator that was in the book. And you could tell by their mannerisms, I know that sounds terrible, but you could tell by their mannerisms that they were autistic, right? So I asked the Sarge to go get them. He went up and got them. He brought them down. And in the area between the two sets of doors where you go into the chamber, they stood in there. And we got senators to
He's
come
a
in
crier,
and say hello.
Davis. I'm a
sorry.
crier, so I respect you for that. I'm a crier. You go right ahead.
Well, that was a profound experience for me.
Was it?
It was. So I started thinking, if we want a Senate presidency to be about doing good, right? What does it mean in this space? I mean, I saw their faces just light up. Then their mother sent me an email that wiped me out. Just, man. So enough of the crying. Just wiped me out. So I decided to go on a mission. I wanted to learn about this. So I bought a couple of books. I read the books, devoured them. I got with staff. Lo and behold, there's staff in this building that have family members, that have children that have autism. And all of a sudden it became this organic labor of love. And then poof, the next thing you know, ideas are flying around and there's research going on to try to figure out, how do we attack this? How do we support this? In my travels around the state, I've come in contact with a lot of families that have children that have autism, and many times they would feel like they were alone. They feel like, what do I do? Where the what, right?
Right.
What? Anyhow, that's how it all happened.
I should correct myself, too. I'm sitting here as you're speaking, and I'm sort of concentrating on this in my mind. The Speaker's brother is developmentally disabled, and I don't know that and that's not the same as autistic. So I think I misspoke earlier, so I apologize to the Speaker, and I apologize for getting that wrong. So I just want to make sure that I clarify that.
Yes, ma'am. So that's how we ended up.
Right.
I immediately thought of Gail Harrell to run the bill. She did a fantastic job with the bill.
She said she has two grandsons who are.
Yes, ma'am. It's out there. It's real. It's very real. So that's really the story, and that's what happens. And, that's what I think is so really just so incredible about this process. You run across people that have challenges, and you can really do something to help.
Yeah, not
a
sexy issue, not a headline-grabbing issue, but something that may be really able to bring relief to a lot of regular families, a lot of families across the state. Right?
Amen, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Something else that you didn't really talk about today, and I know we'll talk about it tomorrow, is Senator Thompson passed away recently. Her desk is graced with the white flowers, and there's a portrait of her in the entrance to the. So don't get done crying yet. I'm looking around. You're a crier. I don't see any tissues. So
I'm okay. I'll be okay.
Well, I might cry because I've known Senator Thompson for a very long time, and so
get you prepared.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you all are going to do a celebration of life for her tomorrow after we record this. And I just wanted to give you a chance to give our listeners some of your thoughts on her and her passing, and share with you. I don't know if you were in the Senate when she used to do this. I think in her first iteration as a senator, she would do what they're calling these historical reenactments. And she would dress up and she would tell stories of African American leaders, women, mostly women, I think. I can't remember now all of them. But the entire members, all of the members would be wrapped just looking at her, and, she captured everyone's imagination and attention, which is something with 40 Somalian warlords.
Yes, ma'am.
So I was just wondering if you could say a few words about the late Senator Thompson.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I was not in the Senate when she used to do that. So number one, so incredibly sorry to Judge Thompson, their entire family. Mm-hmm. I went to her funeral, her service in Orlando. It was just incredible. The entire church was a big church, and it was full. That's a testament to not just all the people in her life that she touched, but all the people in her life that she touched in a positive way. I mean, it was amazing to watch. I do want to say this about her because I think she deserves this today. Her family deserves this. She, being an African-American woman, a black woman, she and I actually talked about this at one point, and this is part of how she had an impact on my life. Her life, when black Americans were looked at as they were lesser than anybody else, which it just boggles my mind, especially when you go back and you look at all of the things that they brought to the table, the innovations, the inventions, just the struggle for equality, right? I mean, it's just an incredible thing. But we talked about what life was like with her, when she was young. It impacted me substantially. It is the wrong word to say taught, although she was teaching me, but it helped me grow a huge amount.
Made it real.
That's well put. Yes, ma'am. It made it very real. That, number one. Number two, what I know is that when she would speak on an issue, even if you disagreed with her, she spoke with authority. She spoke with power. She spoke with character, engagement. I mean, when I said that the Florida Senate is lesser today because she is not here, I mean, honestly, that's an understatement.
She was a classy lady, too,
Yep.
And she recorded the podcast with me almost exactly a year ago before she died last February, and we're going to be sending that out again this week in honor of her. I don't know if she shared this story about after her husband became a judge, they had a luncheon for the wives of the judges at a country club. And there were no blacks allowed at the country club. And she was told, you can't attend this luncheon. And so the other wives were scrambling to figure out, okay, well, we'll have it here or we'll have it there. And then I think the chief judge's wife told her, no, you're going to come with me and we're going to go in through the front door. So you might want to listen to that. I might have mixed it up a little. It was a year ago. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So, but she did have some amazing stories to tell. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts about her.
I did. I tell people that my theme with the Florida Senate, overarching above all, 1 Corinthians 13:13, it's life's about love. And I did. I loved her. Still do. Miss her.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Let's move on to some more mundane, less emotional issue. Although this is an emotional issue, property insurance is quite emotional for a lot of people in Florida. A House committee is going to this week start digging into a report that came out recently that said that the property insurance companies may have been making a lot more money at the time when they were coming to you all and saying, if you don't pass these reforms, we're going to leave the state and it's going to be a problem. What do you think about those reports? And, are you curious to find out who knew what, when, and whether the legislature was, the speaker said, they may have been allegedly playing a shell game with their profits and their revenues.
So what is today? I forget.
Today is Wednesday.
Yeah. So Monday, I instructed, I have not read the report, the study, but I am going to with diligence. We should all be about fairness. And there is no question about it that property insurance is a crushing issue for Floridians.
Everywhere I go, people ask me about it.
If there is a number one issue, condos are important but they're more on the coast. Across the state, though, holistically, insurance, the cost of insurance is substantially important. So I have not read the study, but I am going to read it. I've instructed my staff to be prepared. We're going to do a full debriefing with me to make sure that I understand. I'm a questions guy. So just by nature inquisitive, and we're gonna dig into this to try to understand what's happening. I applaud the speaker for going after this, and I don't know if he's more efficient than I am because he has the time to do this. Maybe I spend too much time asking questions. I don't know, but when it comes to this, we're a little behind the curve, but we're going to be looking at this. And I've talked to several senators. I spoke to one in the Panhandle, Senator Gates, President Gates, and he has keen interest in this, and we're digging in right now to try to see what the numbers show. And, he, at least anecdotally, has heard people of folks that suffered loss during Hurricane Michael that was 2018, that they haven't, the claim settled, it's over, it's all done, and they've not received a dime.
Yeah.
And I committed to him in that moment, if that is a fact, we're going to run to that fight, because I couldn't imagine being the people that own those homes and lived in those homes and suffered through something like that.
I've spoken to some people from over in that neck of the woods, and I think there's a little bit of, I don't want to say resentment, that might be a little too strong, but a little maybe hurt feelings that the perception that other parts of the state maybe were treated differently later in the hurricanes that came after, Idalia and the one down. Ian, yeah. And that, that there are blue tarps still over there and people haven't gotten paid. And I know there's concerns still about how that was handled.
Well, could I comment on that?
Yeah.
Here's one of the challenges that you have, and this isn't necessarily on storm recovery, and I want to comment on that if I can right here in a second. One of the challenges with property insurance in Florida is that with the surge of people moving into the state, what has happened is that a home that cost $350,000 to build and live in 6, 7, 8 years ago, all of a sudden now is $500,000, $600,000. And this is the big challenge. The big challenge is to insure the home. Now you're insuring something that cost 60, 70, 80, sometimes 100% more to insure. So just from a actuarially sound basis, which insurance companies are required to be, then of course insurance is going to go up. The problem is that I don't know that for sure. We want to look at the data, but I don't know for sure if the income has continued, especially with, just call them, lower middle class families in Florida, if their incomes have gone up enough to cover that relative to the increase in the equity in their home.
Right, if there's been a comparative increase in their paycheck compared to the increase in the
insurance costs or the cost of living altogether. Yes. It's an aggregate number. But there is essentially new equity in every home if you've owned it, right, or lived in it and been making payments for some period of time. There's new equity that exists. If they sold it, they'd get it. But, they want to live in that home, and it's a blessing for the cost of the home to go up. We're going to look at that. Well,
yeah, except that equity is diminished if it's in tatters and it's uninhabitable.
Right. So that takes us back over to Hurricane Michael and Ian, all the hurricanes. Yes. We're going to dig into the study.
Okay.
I want to see what facts are in that study. I want to meet with the OIR guy, Mike Jaworski, very smart man, really dedicated to looking out for property owners in Florida. So I want to sit down after that. And I told my staff, I want to bring Mike in. I want to bring, his staff in. Let's have a conversation about this. Let's figure out, what's, sometimes things are accurate. Sometimes they're partially accurate. Sometimes they're not accurate at all. So we want to figure out what the facts and the fact pattern actually says. But I applaud the speaker for doing it. And I'm on the record in a couple of my speeches. We're watching was the term I used, and us digging into this is how we're going to be watching and make sure that we're pursuing fairness across the board. What we don't want to do, this is the double-edged sword. You've heard me use that analogy for some things. Energy costs is one of those things. What we don't want to do in the Florida Senate, at least, where we can control it, is to make a mistake that causes the insurance rates, which now have begun to stabilize in many, many cases. And actually, there were a lot of companies that filed for rate decreases. So regardless of what was going on before the tort reform that happened, something's changing in the marketplace, and it's beginning to soften pretty substantially. And that's great news. It's great news because homeowners have been just watching it go up and up and up and up and up. So something is moving in the right direction. What we don't want to do is put the legislature and the governor in a position to where we push through some kind of policy or we do something that causes that to change course and start escalating again. Do I think that is likely? No, but it's possible if we make a mistake. I just want to be sure we know the facts, we know where we're going, and we're using. The analogy I use, Dara, is like measure 3 times, cut once.
Yes, you do say that quite a bit.
Well, it's my philosophy.
Yeah.
When you cut in the legislature, things happen, and you want to be sure your expectations are met.
Yeah. Do you do any woodwork yourself?
No, I don't. My dad, actually, before he had
My grandfather was really.
I love the idea of it, by the way.
Yeah,
I love
he was
the
a
idea of it.
craftsman.
My dad has a workshop and has all kind of power tools out for woodworking and the whole deal, the lathe, the table saws, the whole thing.
I do.
He doesn't anymore. He had a stroke years ago.
I'm sorry.
And, he's still here, thank goodness. Praise God. That's
grew up
something I
around
want
that.
to do.
You grew up around
yes,
that. Yeah.
yes. That's something I will tell you one day when I'm done in the legislature and maybe Missy and I
Take
are
up a hobby.
on the greener pastures. I want to travel, and I'd love to woodwork and just build things.
Oh, wow. That's a great goal. I love that. Let's talk about the budget. You were asked a little bit about this during the gaggle that you did with us reporters. The rumor every year is that the legislature, not every year, but many years, is that the legislature will roll out the budget early because then the governor only has 7 days. If the legislature is still in session and you send the bill, then he only has 7 days to act, and then you're still here, and so you can do the veto overrides. Now, I want to set up the question a little bit like this. You guys did the override of the Legislative Services veto from the current year budget, and we'll get back to the tensions or lack of tensions between the executive and the legislature at this point, week 2. But you did that. The House went ahead and looked at other potential budget veto overrides. You were very clear. You told me on the podcast or told us during a gaggle that the Senate didn't have any plans to do any other veto overrides this session. That's all the setup. The question is, forget about that rumor that we're going to get the budget to him early. And I guess the follow-up to that is, would you consider doing current year overrides if that's the case?
Okay, so looking at the timing and the way session lays in and the process that it takes to build the budget, have the sub-chairs do their, or the appropriations subcommittee do theirs, the as it works through the conference, all of that, it takes some time to get that done. My number one goal, the overarching goal, has been to do it well. We want to do the budget really well, and I can give you specifics of what I mean by that for definition and applicability into that process, but we want to do it well. The second thing is Easter weekend falls really right about in there when we're going to be talking about the budget.
Okay.
So, I told my staff very early that there's a lot of people of faith, a lot of them in this building, a lot of people that are impacted by the things that happen in this building, and I want to protect Easter weekend holistically. That means Good Friday all the way to Easter. So
just that long weekend, then not a whole. There used to be times when they would take a whole week off during the holiday. But I don't know where that falls in terms of what week in session that is. I don't have my calendar in front.
You have to go back and look. It's 4 or 5, but it's right there.
Okay, so it is smack dab in the middle,
process.
Right?
So my secondary.
So we're not going to be, Easter hunting eggs and then running into the Capitol to work on spreadsheets.
Well, this is what I told Andrew, my chief of staff, and our senior appropriations staff. I don't want people in the building when we are arguably observing the most important, at least for Christians, the most important weekend of the year. Now, the birth of Christ is important, Christmas is important, but the context and value of Easter is substantial. So I don't want them in the building. That's goal number 2. As it relates to whether or not we get the budget to the governor and the idea and the plans to get it, so he only has 7 days to try to comb through the budget and do all of that. At this point in time, I go back to, I just want to do a good budget. I want a detailed and fact-based, outcome-driven approach to the budgeting process. Look, that in itself is like eating a whale.
Eating a whale.
Eating a whale. Forget about eating an elephant.
Right.
It's like eating a whale.
Right.
So, look, I think you're going to...
forget about it, basically. Stop with the rumors about that already. It's like people like to whisper about...
Stop with the rumors.
Okay.
I want a good budget. I just really
Well, there you go,
budget.
Divas. The president made a little news here. He gave a little advice. Find something else to gossip about.
Yeah, there you okay. That's probably fair. But look, here's what I'll tell you. I think this is really, really important for your divas, and that is there was a result that came from the family squabble that the legislature and the governor had early in this process. And the result is that I have gotten to know the governor exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. And I do have a lot of respect for him. I've never seen anybody, I'm just telling you, I've never seen anybody that has an attention to detail, recall for just obscure numbers and facts.
I heard he's got like a photographic memory.
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
You have a huge respect for him. You know, when we talk, and unless it's public, right? When we're talking, it's Ron and Ben, and we're communicating, we're asking each other questions. We're in a great place. We're in a great place. And I know that I'm not going to speak for the speaker. I have a huge respect for him too. He's a very close friend of mine, and we have developed a very special personal bond. But right now, we're moving in a great direction. And we're communicating, we're talking. Are we going to agree on everything? Not in a million years. It's not going to happen. And listen, your divas or anybody else that listens to this anywhere, we don't want a government that we always agree all the time. That's called groupthink. And when you're suffering from groupthink, you aren't forced to be creative. You aren't forced to be innovative. You aren't forced to communicate. You aren't forced to work through big challenges to make sure that whatever end result we bring, whether it's a budget or policy or anything else, is really the best we can bring forward to Floridians. It was crazy to me that there were people that were feasting off of this. And even today, I've got people on Twitter. I mean, I put a post up about on Valentine's Day about my wife, right? And here come the trolls, right? And they're just on that post saying very inappropriate things, on that. I have no use for them. I have use for people that want to use their brain. I have use for people that want to drive better conversations, better communication, better results. That's who I'm wrapping my arms around. And that's exactly what I have today. I can't speak for me. That's what I have with the Speaker of the House, Danny Perez. And that's what I have with the governor. And I'm going to leverage that every way I can to bring good results.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's talk about Doge for a second. This is like a fun question, and then I'll ask one more serious question. I've been asking people, Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, on your own personal Doge.
Okay.
Ben Albritton's Doge, not the state of Florida, not, whatever. At your house, in your personal life, what do you think you could Doge? What do you think? Is there any examples of bloat or, excess that you think you should or could cut back on?
Probably food, honestly. I love to cook.
I do too.
I love to cook.
Oh, next time you'll have to share your favorite recipe.
I'm all about that.
Okay.
I love to cook, so we could probably honestly buy less food. But, look, Missy and I are honestly pretty darn frugal. Missy and our children forced me to go through my ties and clean out all of the ties.
Okay.
And I lost about half of them because the truth is there was a big chunk of them that are probably 10 or 12 years old.
Can you give us a number?
There had to have been probably 30 of them.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot of ties.
And some of them, I admit, I'm with them.
They needed to go.
Style been way gone.
They had to go.
Some of them almost inappropriate because they were just so out of style. So, I, by nature, as a farmer, Missy and I were very frugal.
Sure.
And we work hard to do things in our life One place I wouldn't cut, though, I will tell you, is investment in our children and grandchildren. So, there are boundaries where, Missy and I may have a conversation about whether we purchase this or whether we don't purchase this, but I don't get involved in that whole buying clothes for the grandkids thing.
I gotcha.
She does whatever.
I probably have too many white button-down shirts. Maybe we could match them up with your ties and make an outfit for someone somewhere. All right. The last thing I wanted to ask you about is your thoughts on potentially doing away with guns or property taxes. What do you want to talk about? I'll let you pick.
I don't have a problem talking about guns. I'm not afraid of it.
All right. So the House is moving ahead with the measure that would lower the age from 21 to 18 to purchase long guns. That was changed in the aftermath of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas mass shooting. And that is being litigated. It's being litigated in federal court by the NRA. You have been very steadfast in your opposition to rolling back that law. Tell us where you stand on that today.
So the big ticket items, the big conversations, the first would be about open carry.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Open carry.
I am opposed
I
to
meant
that.
open. I meant I have it on my
okay.
notes and I skipped it. I was kind of nervous about running out of time.
So, I am opposed to open carry. The first reason is that law enforcement,
your law enforcement folks
around
hate
the
it.
state, they are super nervous about
That's
the
right.
idea. Number two, we're a tourist state. It's illogical. But the most important thing that I just don't understand, I'm a concealed carry permit holder. I carry every day, some days more than one weapon. I'm a lifetime NRA member. I am a Second Amendment guy. But I don't understand why, if you can carry in the state of Florida, and we did this, and I was proud to support it, if you can carry in the state of Florida, concealed, without a permit, if you are capable or able to do it, if you can do that, there is no real distinction between that and being able to carry one on your hip.
Why do you need to? I just don't understand why you need to flash it around.
Look, if I knew just in my hometown that we could just do open carry there, I'm in rural Florida, right? It would not be a big issue, but I am responsible for policy that affects the entire state of Florida.
Sure.
And look, if I walk into a convenience store and I am carrying the weapon or weapons that I carry, I'm not going to say where I carry them because that would violate what I'm about to say. But if I walk into a convenience store and something goes wrong and there are people in their intent to hurt somebody for some reason, then I can protect myself very easily with one move.
You're the good guy. Oh, with one move.
One move.
You're
to
the
get
good
to
guy
my
with a
weapon,
gun, like
right? If I have it hung on my waist,
right,
on my hip,
yeah.
Do you think for a second they aren't going to look around and see that? And if they're intent on hurting somebody, will I even have a chance to get to it?
Yeah, I think you may have just revealed, for those of us who know a little bit about firearms, you might have just revealed where you do keep it if you don't keep it on your waist, but that's okay. We won't tell.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. But to me, look, I think that's where some people, when I have the conversation with folks about why I feel like the way I do, and I talk about the facts of not just law enforcement, not just a tourism state. I mean, we're not like any other state. The diversity in Florida, the fact that if you're carrying it on your hip and somebody wants to hurt somebody, they're going to target you first if you're the biggest threat. I'm really trying to take a logical approach to this. And it doesn't change the fact that I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I mean, it doesn't diminish the fact that I'm a lifetime NRA member. It doesn't diminish the fact I'm a concealed carry permit holder. I'm a gun enthusiast. I own a lot of guns. It doesn't diminish that just because I'm trying to take a thoughtful approach to what's best for Florida. That's the nature of politics, I guess.
Senate President Ben Albritton, thank you so much for allowing us to visit with you again today. I can't wait to have you back.
Happy to do it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.